Imperial Jewels, a luxury jewelry store in the vibrant heart of New York City, was known for its sophistication and exclusivity, attracting high society with its gleaming display cases and impeccable pieces. However, an unexpected change was about to shake its foundations when Emily Baker, a determined young receptionist with a genuine heart, joined the team. Unbeknownst to her, she was entering an environment where prejudice and rigid traditions still dominated. As Emily faced challenges and resistance in her struggle to transform the company's culture, an seemingly ordinary customer, Jason Reynolds, watched everything closely. But Jason was no ordinary customer, and his presence would have profound consequences. What motivated this mysterious customer, and how would Emily's battle for a more inclusive and humane environment become the starting point for a radical change not only in the jewelry store, but in the entire luxury industry? Let's find out. Before we dive into this story full of unexpected twists and moments of transformation, tell us where you're watching from, and if you enjoy stories of justice and renewal, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. In the beating heart of New York City, where luxury and tradition intertwine like threads of gold and silver, Imperial Jewels stands majestically. Its gleaming display cases attract the gaze of passers-by, reflecting not only the sparkle of the most precious gems, but also the glow of New York's high society. Emily Baker, a 28-year-old woman with hazel eyes and a warm smile, hurries through the bustling streets. Her brown hair, pulled back in an impeccable bun, sways slightly in the morning breeze. Dressed in a navy blue suit, Emily projects an image of professionalism and discreet elegance. As she enters through the glass doors of Imperial Jewels, Emily takes a deep breath, preparing for another day as a receptionist in this temple of luxury. The scent of fine leather and the soft tinkling of jewelry greet her, along with the scrutinizing glances of her colleagues. "Good morning, everyone," Emily greets with genuine kindness, receiving only cold nods and barely audible murmurs in return. Alexander Vega, a middle-aged man in an impeccable suit and a permanent expression of disdain, glances at her. "Emily, make sure the coffee is ready. Mrs. Montero will arrive any moment, and you know how she gets if she doesn't have her double espresso." Emily nods with a smile, ignoring the condescending tone. "Of course, Alexander, I'll take care of it right away." As she prepares the coffee, Emily observes the comings and goings of customers. She sees how Rebecca Lane, a saleswoman with platinum blonde hair and perfectly manicured nails, attends to a wealthy couple, her honeyed voice contrasting with the coldness in her eyes. "Oh, Mrs. Gutierrez, this sapphire necklace is simply divine on you. It highlights the nobility of your features," Rebecca flatters, while casting a sidelong glance at a humble-looking man who has dared to enter the store. Emily notices the man's discomfort and, without hesitation, approaches him with a genuine smile. "Welcome to Imperial Jewels, sir. How can I help you today?" The man, with dark skin and deep eyes, seems surprised by the kind treatment. I was just looking," he mumbles, clearly uncomfortable with the disdainful looks from the other employees. "Please, feel free to explore. We have beautiful pieces for all tastes and budgets," Emily says, ignoring the disapproving gestures from Alexander and Rebecca. What Emily doesn't know is that this man is Jason Reynolds, one of the most important suppliers of rare jewels in the country, who has decided to visit the store incognito to evaluate the service. As Jason tours the store, he overhears snippets of conversations that chill his blood. "Did you see how he came in, as if he could afford anything here?" Rebecca whispers to Alexander. "These aren't our customers, Rebecca. We should have a filter at the door," Alexander responds, not bothering to lower his voice. Jason clenches his fists, containing his indignation. He decides to prolong his visit, observing how the treatment changes drastically, depending on the appearance or surname of the customer. At the end of the day, Jason leaves the store with a heavy heart and a mind full of conflicting thoughts. He takes out his phone and dials a number. "Nathan, it's Jason. We need to talk about Imperial Jewels. Things aren't right there." Meanwhile, Emily closes the store, exhausted but satisfied with having treated everyone with the same dignity. However, a conversation caught by chance leaves her frozen. "That new girl, Emily, is ruining our image. She doesn't understand that this isn't a market for just anyone," Alexander says to Rebecca. Totally agree. Maybe we should talk to Eric about reconsidering her position, Rebecca responds maliciously. Emily feels a knot in her stomach. Her job, her passion for customer service, everything is at stake. But deep down, she knows she's doing the right thing. With determination, she promises herself that she won't change no matter the consequences. The next morning dawned grey over New York City, as if the sky reflected the tension that hung in the air at Imperial Jewels. Emily arrived early, as always, but this time with extra weight on her shoulders. Alexander and Rebecca's words echoed in her mind, fueling her worries about her future in the company. As she organized the catalogs at the main counter, the bell on the door announced the arrival of a customer. Emily looked up and found herself face to face with a middle-aged man, dressed in an elegant but discreet suit. His eyes, penetrating yet warm, scanned the store with interest. "Good morning. Welcome to Imperial Jewels," Emily greeted with her characteristic smile. "How can I help you today?" The man returned her smile. "Good morning. I'm looking for a special gift for my wife. It's our anniversary." Before Emily could respond, Alexander appeared as if by magic, his radar for potential clients activated to the maximum. "Good morning, sir. I'm Alexander Vega, sales manager. It will be my pleasure to assist you personally," he interrupted, strategically positioning himself between Emily and the customer. "Emily, could you prepare coffee for our distinguished guest?" Emily nodded, suppressing a sigh of frustration. As she headed to the small kitchen, she managed to overhear the conversation. "Tell me, Mr. Alexander began. "Villa-Lobos, Nathan Villa-Lobos," the customer responded. Emily almost dropped the cup she was holding. She knew that name. Nathan Villa-Lobos was one of Imperial Jewels' most important suppliers. What was he doing there, acting like an ordinary customer? From the kitchen, Emily observed how Alexander deployed his entire arsenal of sales techniques, showing the most exclusive and expensive pieces. However, she noticed something peculiar in Nathan's gaze, a glimmer of disappointment. Meanwhile, in a nearby cafe, Jason Reynolds was impatiently stirring his coffee. His encounter the previous day at Imperial Jewels had left him deeply disturbed. He took out his phone and dialed a familiar number. "Nathan, how's everything going over there?" he asked in a low voice. "I'm on it, Jason." "The situation is interesting," Nathan replied from the other end of the line, his voice barely a whisper. "I'll call you when I'm done here." Back at the jewelry store, Nathan continued his act as an indecisive customer, testing the patience of Alexander and Rebecca. Emily, meanwhile, kept herself busy but always attentive and willing to help when allowed. "And what about this piece?" Nathan asked, pointing to a modest but beautiful necklace in a side display case. Rebecca could barely hide her grimace of disgust. "Oh, that's a more economical piece. Surely your wife would prefer something more exclusive." Nathan raised an eyebrow. "And if my wife preferred something simpler?" "With all due respect, Mr. Villa-Lobos," Alexander intervened with a forced smile. "A woman of your position deserves the best. Allow me to show you our diamond collection." Emily, who was passing by with a tray of coffee, couldn't help but intervene. "Excuse me, Mr. Villa-Lobos. If I may suggest, we have a beautiful collection of artisanal pieces that combine elegance and simplicity. Perhaps you'll find something that reflects your wife's unique taste." Alexander shot her a withering look, but Nathan seemed interested. "That sounds perfect. Could you show me that collection, Emily?" "Of course," she replied, ignoring the murderous glares from her colleagues. As Emily guided Nathan towards a less ostentatious display case, Alexander and Rebecca exchanged worried glances. "That girl is going to ruin us," Rebecca muttered. "Can you imagine if she convinces Villa-Lobos to buy one of those trinkets?" Alexander nodded, his mind already scheming. "We have to do something about it, and soon." At the end of his visit, Nathan Villa-Lobos left Imperial Jewels with a small box in his hand and a thoughtful expression on his face. As soon as he stepped onto the street, he took out his phone. "Jason, we need to talk. The situation is worse than we thought, but there's hope." Meanwhile, Emily closed the store, exhausted but satisfied with having treated everyone with the same dignity. However, A conversation caught by chance left her frozen. That new girl, Emily, is ruining our image. She doesn't understand that this isn't a market for just anyone, Alexander was saying to Rebecca. Totally agree. Maybe we should talk to Eric about reconsidering her position, Rebecca responded maliciously. Emily felt a knot in her stomach. Her job, her passion for customer service, everything was at stake. But deep down, she knew she was doing the right thing. With determination, she promised herself that she wouldn't change, no matter the consequences. The following morning dawned gray over New York City, as if the sky reflected the tension that hung in the air at Imperial Jewels. Emily arrived early, as always, but this time with extra weight on her shoulders. Alexander and Rebecca's words echoed in her mind, fueling her worries about her future in the company. As she organized the catalogs at the main counter, the bell on the door announced the arrival of a customer. Emily looked up and found herself face to face with a middle-aged man, dressed in an elegant but discreet suit. His eyes, penetrating yet warm, scanned the store with interest. "Good morning, welcome to Imperial Jewels," Emily greeted with her characteristic smile. "How can I help you today?" The man returned her smile. "Good morning. I'm looking for a special gift for my wife. It's our anniversary." Before Emily could respond, Alexander appeared as if by magic, his radar for potential clients activated to the maximum. "Good morning, sir. I'm Alexander Vega, sales manager. It will be my pleasure to assist you personally," he interrupted, strategically positioning himself between Emily and the customer. "Emily, could you prepare coffee for our distinguished guest?" Emily nodded, suppressing a sigh of frustration. As she headed to the small kitchen, she managed to overhear the conversation. "Tell me, Mr. Alexander began. "Villalobos, Nathan Villalobos," the customer responded. Emily almost dropped the cup she was holding. She knew that name. Nathan Villalobos was one of Imperial Jewels' most important suppliers. What was he doing there, acting like an ordinary customer? From the kitchen, Emily observed how Alexander deployed his entire arsenal of sales techniques, showing the most exclusive and expensive pieces. However, she noticed something peculiar in Nathan's gaze, a glimmer of disappointment. Meanwhile, in a nearby cafe, Jason Reynolds was impatiently stirring his coffee. His encounter the previous day at Imperial Jewels had left him deeply disturbed. He took out his phone and dialed a familiar number. "Nathan, how's everything going over there?" he asked in a low voice. "I'm on it, Jason. The situation is interesting," Nathan replied from the other end of the line, his voice barely a whisper. "I'll call you when I'm done here." Back at the jewelry store, Nathan continued his act as an indecisive customer, testing the patience of Alexander and Rebecca. Emily, meanwhile, kept herself busy, but always attentive and willing to help when allowed. "And what about this piece?" Nathan asked, pointing to a modest but beautiful necklace in a side display case. Rebecca could barely hide her grimace of disgust. "Oh, that's a more economical piece. Surely your wife would prefer something more exclusive." Nathan raised an eyebrow. "And if my wife preferred something simpler?" "With all due respect, Mr. Villalobos," Alexander intervened with a forced smile, "a woman of your position deserves the best. Allow me to show you our diamond collection." Emily, who was passing by with a tray of coffee, couldn't help but intervene. "Excuse me, Mr. Villalobos. If I may suggest, we have a beautiful collection of artisanal pieces that combine elegance and simplicity. Perhaps you'll find something that reflects your wife's unique taste." Alexander shot her a withering look, but Nathan seemed interested. "That sounds perfect. Could you show me that collection, Emily?" "Of course," she replied, ignoring the murderous glares from her colleagues. As Emily guided Nathan towards a less ostentatious display case, Alexander and Rebecca exchanged worried glances. "That girl is going to ruin us," Rebecca muttered. "Can you imagine if she convinces Villalobos to buy one of those trinkets?" Alexander nodded, his mind already scheming. "We have to do something about it, and soon." At the end of his visit, Nathan Villalobos left Imperial Jewels with a small box in his hand and a thoughtful expression on his face. As soon as he stepped onto the street, he took out his phone. "Jason, we need to talk. The situation is worse than we thought, but there's hope." Meanwhile, Emily closed the store. exhausted but satisfied with having treated everyone with the same dignity. However, a conversation caught by chance left her frozen. "That new girl, Emily, is ruining our image. She doesn't understand that this isn't a market for just anyone," Alexander was saying to Rebecca. "Totally agree. Maybe we should talk to Eric about reconsidering her position," Rebecca responded maliciously. Emily felt a knot in her stomach. Her job, her passion for customer service, everything was at stake. But deep down she knew she was doing the right thing. With determination, she promised herself that she wouldn't change, no matter the consequences. That night, in her small apartment, Emily reflected on the day's events. She knew she had done the right thing by suggesting pieces that truly fit the customer's desires, but she couldn't shake the feeling that she had dug her own grave at Imperial Jewels. What Emily didn't know was that her action had set in motion a series of events that would shake the foundations of the jewelry store and change her life forever. The next morning dawned with a palpable tension in the air at Imperial Jewels. Emily arrived early, as usual, but immediately noticed that something was different. Alexander and Rebecca were whispering in a corner, shooting furtive glances at her that abruptly stopped when she noticed them. "Good morning," Emily greeted cautiously. She only received grunts in response. She had barely finished arranging the catalogues when the manager's office door burst open. Eric Thompson, a man in his 50s with graying hair and thin-rimmed glasses, emerged with a grave expression. "Emergency meeting, everyone in my office. Now," he ordered in a tense voice. Emily felt her heart skip a beat. Was this the end of her career at Imperial Jewels? She followed her colleagues to the office, mentally preparing herself for the worst once inside. Eric looked at them all with a mixture of disappointment and frustration. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a serious problem. I just received a call from Nathan Villalobos." Alexander straightened up, a confident smile on his face. "Mr. Villalobos, he must be calling to thank us for the attention he received yesterday. I personally ensured he had the best experience." Eric stared at him. "On the contrary, Alexander, Mr. Villalobos is seriously considering terminating our collaboration." A sepulchral silence fell over the room. Emily felt the ground moving beneath her feet. Had her suggestion been the cause of this disaster? "But that's impossible," Rebecca stammered. "We showed him the best pieces. We gave him VIP treatment. Apparently," Eric continued, "Mr. Villalobos wasn't just evaluating our inventory. He was evaluating our customer service and our business ethics." Everyone's eyes widened when Eric revealed the truth. Nathan Villalobos had been acting in coordination with Jason Reynolds, who had visited the store the previous day disguised as a humble man. Mr. Reynolds was deeply disappointed by the discriminatory treatment he received, Eric explained, and Mr. Villalobos confirmed his suspicions during his visit yesterday. Alexander and Rebecca paled, exchanging panicked glances. Emily Kant, for her part, felt a mixture of relief and concern. "However," Eric continued, "not all is lost. Apparently, there was one employee who treated Mr. Reynolds with respect and dignity, and who offered genuine service to Mr. Villalobos." All eyes turned to Emily, who blushed intensely. "Emily," Eric said with a tired smile, "your behavior has saved us from a total disaster. Mr. Reynolds and Mr. Villalobos are willing to give us one last chance, but with a condition." "What is that condition, Mr. Thompson?" Emily asked with a trembling voice. "They want you, Emily, to lead a cultural change at Imperial Jewels. Starting today, you'll be our new coordinator of customer service and business ethics." The room erupted into chaos. Alexander and Rebecca protested vehemently, while other employees murmured among themselves, surprised and confused. "This is unacceptable," Alexander shouted. "She doesn't have the necessary experience. She'll ruin our reputation." "Our reputation is already at stake, Alexander," Eric responded firmly. "And it was your behavior, and Rebecca's, that put us in this situation." Emily, still stunned by the news, found her voice. "Mr. Thompson, I don't know what to say. I'm honored by the trust. But are you sure I'm the right person for this responsibility?" Eric looked her directly in the eyes. "Emily, your empathy and professionalism are exactly what we need right now. It won't be easy, but I trust that you can lead this change." "This is ridiculous," Rebecca exclaimed. "We can't let a simple receptionist dictate how to treat our elite clients." Eric turned to her with a severe look. "It's precisely that attitude that has put us in this situation. Rebecca, all of you will work under Emily's direction to implement a new approach to customer service. Anyone who isn't willing to adapt can look for employment elsewhere." A tense silence fell over the room. Emily could feel the resentful glares from Alexander and Rebecca, but she also noticed some supportive smiles from other colleagues who had always appreciated her kindness. "Well, if there are no more questions, return to your posts," Eric ordered. "Emily, please stay a moment." As the others left, some muttering under their breath, others in shock, Emily remained in the office, her mind spinning with the implications of this sudden change in her career. "Emily," Eric said once they were alone, "I know this is a lot to take in, but I need you to understand the gravity of the situation. Imperial Jewels is not only at risk of losing its most important suppliers, our reputation in the market is at stake." Emily nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. "I understand, Mr. Thompson. I'll do my best not to let you down." "I know you will," Eric smiled. "You have carte blanche to implement the changes you deem necessary. I want a detailed plan on my desk in 48 hours. And Emily, us prepare for resistance. Not everyone will be happy with this change." Leaving the office, Emily found herself in a hostile environment. Alexander glared at her as she passed. And Rebecca didn't even try to hide her disdain. "I hope you're satisfied," Alexander hissed. "You've ruined years of tradition at Imperial Jewels." Emily straightened up, finding an inner strength she didn't know she possessed. "No, Alexander, I'm trying to save Imperial Jewels, and I hope all of you will join me in this effort." As she walked to her new desk, Emily felt a mixture of excitement and fear. She knew the coming days would be challenging, but she was determined to prove that kindness and respect could coexist with luxury and exclusivity. That night, in her small apartment, Emily sat in front of her laptop, a cup of coffee by her side, and a burning determination in her eyes. She began to write her plan to transform Imperial Jewels, knowing that every word she typed could be the beginning of a revolutionary change in the luxury industry. Meanwhile, in an elegant restaurant across town, Jason Reynolds and Nathan Villalobos were dining, discussing the day's events. "Do you think it will work?" Jason asked, fiddling with his wine glass. Nathan smiled. "That girl, Emily, has something special. If anyone can change the culture of Imperial Jewels, it's her." "I hope you're right," Jason sighed, "because if this fails, not only will they lose our business, but I'll make sure the entire industry knows how they really treat their customers." The two men toasted, aware that they had set in motion events that could change not only the fate of Imperial Jewels, but possibly the way customer service is perceived and practiced in the world of luxury. As night fell over New York City, 3 people in different parts of the city prepared, each in their own way, for the challenges that awaited them. Emily, with her plan for change, Alexander and Rebecca, plotting how to maintain their status quo, and Eric, hoping he had made the right decision to save Imperial Jewels' legacy. What none of them knew was that this was just the beginning of a transformation that would shake the foundations not only of a jewelry store, but of an entire industry. The sun was barely peeking over the horizon when Emily crossed the doors of Imperial Jewels. Her determination was palpable, reflected in her eyes, and in the folder she held firmly against her chest. Inside it, the fruit of 2 sleepless nights, her plan to revolutionize the jewelry store's culture. As she entered, she immediately noticed the change in the atmosphere. Employees looked at her with a mixture of curiosity and wariness. Some smiled timidly, others averted their gaze. Alexander and Rebecca, for their part, didn't hide their disdain. "Good morning, everyone," Emily greeted firmly. "In an hour we'll have a general meeting. Please make sure you're present." As she headed to her new office, she heard the murmurs she left in her wake. She took a deep breath, reminding herself that change is never easy. An hour later, the conference room was full. Emily stood in front of everyone, aware of the skeptical and hostile looks. "Thank you for coming," she began. "I know the last few days have been confusing and stressful for everyone. I'm here to present our new vision for Imperial Jewels. She unfolded a poster on the wall. It read, "Shining with integrity, the new face of Imperial Jewels." Our goal is simple but powerful, Emily continued. We want to be recognized not only for the quality of our jewelry, but for the quality of our human treatment. Every customer who walks through that door, regardless of their appearance or status, deserves to be treated with respect and dignity. Alexander couldn't contain himself. And what about our VIP clients? Are we going to treat them the same as anyone who walks in on a whim? Emily looked at him directly. Alexander, our VIP clients will continue to receive exceptional service, but that doesn't mean we should belittle other potential customers. Every person who walks in here is an opportunity, not just for a sale, but to create a genuine human connection. Rebecca snorted. That sounds nice in theory, but how do you expect it to work in practice? Our clients expect exclusivity. Excellent question, Rebecca, Emily responded. Exclusivity isn't at odds with kindness. In fact, I propose that we redefine exclusivity. Instead of basing it on discrimination, we'll base it on a unique and personal experience for each customer. For the next hour, Emily broke down her plan. New customer service training programs, social responsibility initiatives, collaborations with local artisans to create more accessible lines without sacrificing quality, and a complete renovation of the brand's image. As she spoke, she noticed how some expressions began to change. The initial hostility transformed into interest and even enthusiasm in some cases. To implement these changes, she concluded, I'll need the collaboration of all of you. Each of you has years of valuable experience. Together, we can make Imperial Jewels a place where luxury and humanity shine equally. When the presentation ended, there was silence in the room. Then, to everyone's surprise, Chris, one of the youngest salespeople, stood up and began to applaud. Others gradually joined in until the majority of the room was clapping. Alexander and Rebecca remained seated, their faces a mixture of disbelief and concern. After the meeting, as the employees dispersed, Emily noticed Eric observing from the door. He approached her with a smile. Impressive, Emily. You've exceeded my expectations. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. But this is just the beginning. We have a lot of work ahead of us. Eric nodded. I know. And I also know that not everyone is on board. Keep your eyes open. Change always brings resistance. As Emily returned to her office, she didn't notice the glances Alexander and Rebecca were exchanging in a corner. This can't continue, Alexander muttered. We have to do something. Rebecca nodded. Leave it to me. I have an idea. That afternoon, as Emily worked on the details of her plan, she received an unexpected call. It was Jason Reynolds. Miss Baker, he said in a warm voice, I've heard a lot about you. I was wondering if we could meet to discuss the future of our collaboration with Imperial Jewels. Emily felt a shiver of excitement and nervousness. Of course, Mr. Reynolds. It would be an honor. As she hung up, Emily couldn't help but feel that she was on the brink of something big. What she didn't know was that, while she was preparing to take the next step in her vision, other forces were in motion, plotting in the shadows to undermine everything she was working for. In the streets of New York City, the sun was beginning to set, tinting the sky with golden and reddish hues. It was a beautiful sunset. But for Emily and Imperial Jewels, the real test was just beginning. The next morning dawned with a different energy at Imperial Jewels. Some employees greeted Emily with genuine smiles. Others observed her with renewed curiosity. However, the tension was still palpable, especially around Alexander and Rebecca. Emily immersed herself in her work, refining the details of her implementation plan. She was so concentrated that she almost didn't notice when Chris, the young salesman who had initiated the applause the day before, approached her office. Excuse me, Emily, he said timidly. I was wondering if I could talk to you for a moment. Emily invited him in with a warm smile. Of course. Chris, how can I help you? Chris sat down, visibly nervous. I wanted to tell you that I'm very excited about the changes you're proposing. I always felt uncomfortable with the way we treated some customers, but I was afraid to say anything. Emily nodded understandingly. I appreciate your honesty, Chris. It's exactly that kind of perspective we need to improve. The problem is, Chris continued, lowering his voice, not everyone is as enthusiastic. I heard Alexander and Rebecca talking this morning. They're planning something, Emily. I don't know exactly what, but it doesn't sound good. Emily felt a knot in her stomach, but maintained her composure. Thank you for telling me, Chris. I'll keep my eyes open, and please, if you hear anything else, let me know. After Chris left, Emily remained thoughtful. She knew she would face resistance, but the idea of active sabotage worried her. She decided it was time to take proactive measures. That afternoon, Emily convened a meeting with the sales team. She presented her first concrete initiative, an inclusive customer service training program. Starting next week, we'll all participate in workshops designed to improve our communication and empathy skills, she announced. This will not only help us treat all our customers better, but it will also improve our work environment. As she explained the details, she noticed the varied expressions in the room. Some seemed genuinely interested, others skeptical. Alexander and Rebecca, in particular, exchanged glances that Emily couldn't decipher. At the end of the meeting, Rebecca approached Emily with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Emily, dear, can I talk to you for a moment? Emily nodded, mentally preparing herself. Sure, Rebecca. What's up? I just wanted to tell you that, after thinking about it, I believe your ideas have merit, Rebecca said in a honeyed voice. In fact, I'd like to volunteer to help with the implementation of the training program. Emily blinked, surprised. She hadn't expected this turn. That's wonderful, Rebecca. Your experience would be very valuable. What made you change your mind? Rebecca smiled. Let's say I've reflected on what's best for the company. After all, we must adapt or die, right? As Rebecca walked away, Emily couldn't help but feel a mixture of hope and caution. Was it possible that Rebecca was genuinely on board with the changes, or was there something else behind this sudden change in attitude? That night, as Emily prepared for her meeting with Jason Reynolds the next day, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was walking on thin ice. The changes were underway, but cracks were already beginning to appear on the seemingly smooth surface. In her apartment, she reviewed her presentation for Jason once more. She knew this meeting could be crucial for the future of Imperial Jewels. As she went over her notes, her phone vibrated with a message from an unknown number. Be careful. Not everyone is what they seem. Keep your eyes open tomorrow. Emily stared at the message, a chill running down her spine. Who had sent it? And what did it mean exactly? As the night progressed, Emily struggled against a growing sense of unease. The changes she was implementing were necessary. She was sure of it. But as the shadows lengthened in her apartment, she couldn't help but wonder, at what price would these changes come? And was she really prepared to face the consequences? With these thoughts troubling her mind, Emily finally fell asleep, unaware that the next day, her ideals and determination would be tested in ways she had never imagined. The morning arrived with a mixture of anticipation and anxiety for Emily. She dressed carefully, choosing a navy blue suit that gave her an air of professionalism and confidence. The mysterious message from the night before still resonated in her mind, but she refused to be intimidated. Upon arriving at Imperial Jewels, she immediately noticed that something was different. There was a buzz of excitement in the air, and the employees seemed more agitated than usual. "Good morning, Emily," Chris greeted her, quickly approaching. "Have you heard yet?" "Heard what?" she asked, confused. "Jason Reynolds isn't just coming to meet with you. He's making a surprise visit to the store. He'll arrive at any moment." Emily felt her heart racing. This changed everything. It was no longer just a private meeting. It was a live test of the changes she was implementing. "Thanks for letting me know, Chris. Please make sure everyone is at their posts and remind them of the principles of our new customer service approach." As Chris hurried to fulfill her instructions, Emily noticed Alexander and Rebecca in a corner, talking in low voices with tense expressions. When they saw her, Rebecca approached with a smile that seemed too wide to be sincere. "Emily, dear, how exciting, isn't it? Don't worry, we'll make sure everything goes perfectly for Mr. Reynolds." Before Emily could respond, the main door opened and Jason Reynolds entered. Tall, with dark skin and penetrating eyes, His presence immediately filled the room. To everyone's surprise, Nathan Villalobos was by his side. Emily stepped forward to greet them. "Mr. Reynolds, Mr. Villalobos, welcome to Imperial Jewels. It's an honor to have you here." Jason looked at her with interest. "You must be Emily Baker. I've heard a lot about you and the changes you're implementing." "That's right," Emily responded with a confident smile. "In fact, I'd like to personally show you some of the new initiatives we've put in place." As Emily began her tour, explaining the changes in the store's layout and the new approach to customer service, she noticed that Alexander and Rebecca were following them closely, occasionally intervening with comments. "As you can see," Emily explained, "so we've reorganized our display cases to include a jewelry with history section, which highlights pieces with cultural and artisanal significance, not just for their monetary value." Jason nodded in approval, but Alexander quickly intervened. "Of course, our traditional luxury pieces remain the heart of our business," Emily continued, undeterred. "We've also implemented a new training program for our staff, focused on providing exceptional service to all customers, regardless of their appearance or budget." It was then that it happened. A man entered the store, dressed in modest clothing and looking nervous. Rebecca stepped forward to attend to him, and everyone watched expectantly. To Emily's surprise, Rebecca greeted the man with a warm and genuine smile. "Welcome to Imperial Jewels, sir. How can I help you today?" The man, clearly surprised by the kind treatment, explained that he was looking for a gift for his daughter who was graduating from college. Rebecca guided him patiently, showing him options in various price ranges. Jason and Nathan watched attentively, exchanging approving glances. Emily felt a mixture of pride and confusion. Had Rebecca really changed so quickly? However, as Rebecca attended to the customer, Emily noticed something strange. Alexander had approached one of the display cases and seemed to be manipulating something. Before she could investigate, Jason called her, "Miss Baker, I'm impressed. It seems you're really making significant changes here." Emily smiled, grateful. "Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. We're committed to—" Suddenly, a shout interrupted the conversation. The customer Rebecca was attending to seemed distressed. "My ring! Height was here just a moment ago." Everyone turned to see what was happening. The man was holding an empty box, and while Rebecca seemed genuinely confused, I don't understand. I just put it here," Rebecca stammered. Emily felt the ground opening up beneath her feet. All the progress they had made seemed to be crumbling in an instant. Jason and Nathan observed the scene with grave expressions. At that moment, Emily had to make a crucial decision. How would she handle this crisis in front of the jewelry store's most important suppliers? And what did this incident really mean? Was it a simple mistake, or was there something more sinister at play? As chaos unfolded around her, Emily took a deep breath, knowing that her response to this situation could determine not only her future at Imperial Jewels, but the future of the company itself. Emily felt time slow down as all eyes turned to her, waiting for her reaction. With a calmness she didn't know she possessed, she stepped forward. "Sir, please allow me to handle this personally," she said to the visibly upset customer. Then she addressed everyone present. "I ask everyone to remain calm. We will resolve this situation immediately." Turning to Rebecca, she asked in a firm but calm voice, "Rebecca, can you show me exactly where you last put the ring?" Rebecca, still confused, pointed to the display case. "Right here." "I swear, I don't understand how it could have disappeared." Emily approached the display case, examining it carefully. It was then that she noticed something, a small mark on the glass that hadn't been there before. She remembered seeing Alexander near this display case moments earlier. "Alexander," Emily called, "could you come here for a moment, please?" Alexander approached, his face a mask of professional concern. "Yes." "Emily, did you notice anything unusual about this display case a few minutes ago when you were here?" For a moment, Alexander seemed to hesitate. "No, nothing at all." "Why do you ask?" Emily kept her gaze fixed on him as she spoke. "Because I believe the ring hasn't disappeared. I think someone intentionally moved it." A tense silence fell over the store. Jason and Nathan watched the scene with interest, while the customer seemed increasingly distressed. It was then that Chris, who had been observing from behind, stepped forward. "Emily, I think you should see this." He took out his phone and showed a video. In it, Alexander could clearly be seen manipulating the display case and moving something inside. Alexander paled. I was just reorganizing the pieces." Emily looked at him directly. "Alexander, you know that goes against our security protocols. Only authorized personnel can open the display cases during business hours." Turning to the customer, Emily spoke sincerely. "Sir, I offer you my sincerest apologies for this situation. I assure you we will find your ring immediately." With a meaningful look at Alexander, she continued, "And if for any reason we can't find it, Imperial Jewels will take responsibility for replacing it with a piece of equal or greater value, at no cost to you." The customer, surprised by Emily's honesty and professionalism, nodded slowly. Emily then addressed Jason and Nathan. "Gentlemen, I deeply regret that you've witnessed this incident, but I assure you that this is exactly the type of situation our new protocols are designed to prevent and handle with transparency and responsibility." To everyone's surprise, Jason smiled. "Miss Baker, I must say I'm impressed, not only by your handling of the situation, but by the loyalty you've inspired in your team." He looked towards Chris, who had provided the key evidence. Nathan nodded in agreement. Facing a challenge and overcoming it says more about a company than 1,000 perfect presentations. As they spoke, Rebecca had been frantically searching the display case. Suddenly, she exclaimed, "I found it! It was hidden behind other pieces." The customer sighed in relief as Rebecca handed him the ring. Emily approached him. "Sir, again, I offer our sincerest apologies. As a gesture of our good faith, I'd like to offer you an additional discount on your purchase and a certificate for free lifetime cleaning and maintenance for this piece." The man, moved by the honesty and professional handling of the situation, smiled. "Thank you, miss. I really appreciate how you've handled all of this. In fact, I think I'll be back for my wife's and my silver anniversary next month." After the customer left, satisfied with his purchase, Emily turned to Alexander. Her expression was a mixture of disappointment and determination. "Alexander, we need to talk in private. Please wait for me in my office." Then, addressing Jason and Nathan, she said, "Gentlemen, if you'll allow me a few minutes to handle this internal matter, I'd love to continue our conversation about the future of our collaboration." As Emily headed to her office, she knew that the decisions she would make in the next few minutes would not only affect her career, but the future of Imperial Jewels and the implementation of her vision for a more ethical and humane business. What she didn't know was that this trial by fire was only the beginning of a series of challenges that would test not only her leadership, but also her integrity and determination. Emily closed the door to her office, facing Alexander. The man who had once intimidated her now seemed small and defeated. "Alexander," Emily began with a firm but compassionate voice, "I need you to explain to me exactly what happened out there." Alexander looked up, his eyes a mixture of shame and defiance. "What do you want me to say, Emily? That I tried to sabotage your big moment?" "Well, I did." Emily felt a pang of disappointment but remained calm. "Why, Alexander? We've worked together for years." "Because you're destroying everything we've built," Alexander exploded. "This business is about exclusivity, about making people feel special. And you want to turn it into any department store." Emily shook her head. "You're wrong, Alexander. I'm not destroying anything. I'm evolving our business to be more ethical, more inclusive, without losing our essence of luxury and quality." She approached him, her voice softening. "I understand your fear of change, but what you did today, it put Imperial Jewels' reputation and our customers' security at risk. I can't overlook that." Alexander looked at her, a spark of understanding in his eyes. "Are you going to fire me?" Emily took a deep breath. "No, Alexander. I believe in second chances, but there will be consequences. You'll be on probation for 3 months. During that time, you'll work directly with me on implementing our new customer service protocols. If you demonstrate genuine change, you'll keep your position." Alexander seemed surprised by this show of clemency. I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything now," Emily responded. "Prove it with actions. Now, If you'll excuse me, I have to get back to our guests." As Alexander left the office, visibly moved, Emily took a moment to compose herself. She knew her decision would be controversial, but she firmly believed in the power of redemption and change. As she came out, she found Jason and Nathan waiting patiently. "Gentlemen, I apologize for the wait. Would you like to continue our conversation in my office?" Once inside, Jason got straight to the point. "Miss Baker, I must say I'm impressed with your handling of the situation. Many would have opted for the easy path and fired Alexander on the spot." Emily nodded. "I believe true change comes from transforming people, not getting rid of them." Nathan smiled. "It's refreshing to see that kind of leadership. But let's be frank. Do you really think you can change the culture of such an entrenched institution as Imperial Jewels?" "It won't be easy," Emily admitted, "but I'm convinced it's necessary. The world is changing, and luxury can no longer be defined solely by exclusivity and price. It's about ethics, sustainability, and human connection." Jason and Nathan exchanged glances. "We like your vision, Miss Baker," Jason said. "So much so that we want to propose something to you. We're planning to launch a new line of ethical and sustainable jewelry. We'd like Imperial Jewels to be our main partner in this project." Emily felt her heart racing. This was an incredible opportunity, but also an enormous challenge. "It would be an honor," she responded, "but I must be honest. Implementing these changes will take time and we'll face resistance." Nathan nodded. "We understand, and we're willing to give you that time, 6 months. If in that time frame we see significant progress in implementing your vision, not only will we launch the line with you, but we'll significantly increase our investment in Imperial Jewels." Emily felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders, but also a growing excitement. "I accept the challenge," she said with determination. As Jason and Nathan said goodbye, Emily realized that this was just the beginning. She had 6 months to transform not only Imperial Jewels, but the perception of luxury in the jewelry industry. She left her office to find her team anxiously waiting. Her eyes rested on each of them. Chris, whose honesty had been crucial, Rebecca, whose attitude seemed to be changing, and Alexander, who now looked at her with a mixture of respect and curiosity. "Team," Emily announced, her voice full of determination, "we have a lot of work ahead of us. It's time to redefine what it means to be a luxury jewelry store in the 21st century." As the team gathered around her, Emily knew that the next 6 months would be a whirlwind of challenges and opportunities, but she was ready to face them, one day at a time, one change at a time. What she didn't know was that the real tests were just about to begin, and that her vision of a more ethical and humane business would soon face obstacles she could never have imagined. The following months at Imperial Jewels were a whirlwind of activity and transformation. Emily worked tirelessly, implementing changes and facing challenges at every step. The inclusive customer service training program was in full swing. Emily had hired experts in diversity and inclusion to educate the staff. At first, some employees were skeptical, but gradually, attitudes began to change. Alexander, to many people's surprise, became one of the most fervent advocates of the new approach. His transformation was gradual but remarkable. One day, Emily found him patiently helping an elderly woman who was looking for a gift for her granddaughter. "I never thought I'd feel like this," Alexander confessed to her later. "There's something really rewarding about helping people find the perfect piece, regardless of their budget." Rebecca, for her part, had taken the lead in creating a new line of more accessible jewelry, working with local artisans to create unique pieces that combined tradition and modernity. But not everything was rosy. As Imperial Jewels' reputation as a more inclusive jewelry store grew, some old guard customers expressed their discontent. Emily received several calls from VIP clients complaining that the store was losing its exclusivity. One particularly difficult afternoon, after receiving an especially unpleasant call from an influential customer, Emily found herself questioning her vision. It was then that Chris entered her office. "Emily, there's someone who wants to see you," he said with a mysterious smile. Intrigued, Emily went out to find a surprise. It was the man who had bought the graduation ring for his daughter on the day of the incident, but this time He wasn't alone. "Miss Baker," the man said, smiling widely, "I want to introduce you to my daughter, Maria, and my wife, Ellen." Maria, a radiant young woman, was wearing the ring they had bought. "Miss Baker, I wanted to thank you personally. This ring means a lot to me, not just for what it represents, but for how my father was treated here. He told me everything." Ellen, the wife, added, "In fact, we're here because we want you to help us choose our silver wedding anniversary rings, and we've brought some friends who are also interested in your jewelry." Emily then noticed the group of people waiting outside the store. They were from diverse backgrounds and ages, all looking at the display cases with interest. This moment was a turning point. Emily realized that, although they had lost some old customers, they were gaining many more new ones. Customers who appreciated not only the quality of the jewelry, but the integrity and humanity of the service. The following week saw a steady increase in sales. The new line of ethical and sustainable jewelry, developed in collaboration with Jason and Nathan, was a resounding success. The pieces, which combined sustainable materials with innovative designs, attracted a new generation of conscious buyers. But Emily's real triumph wasn't just measured in numbers. It was visible in the smiles of the employees, in the welcoming atmosphere of the store, and in the stories of customers who now saw Imperial Jewels not just as a store, but as part of their most precious moments. As the end of the 6-month period approached, Emily prepared for the final visit from Jason and Nathan. She knew they had achieved a lot, but also that the road ahead remained challenging. The night before the big meeting, Emily stayed late at the office, going over reports and preparing her presentation. It was then that she noticed an envelope on her desk that she hadn't seen before. Curiously, she opened it and began to read its contents. As her eyes scanned the pages, her expression changed from surprise to concern, and then to determination. What Emily had discovered in that envelope was about to test everything she had built over the past few months. It was a revelation that could shake the foundations not only of Imperial Jewels, but of the entire luxury jewelry industry. As the night progressed, Emily faced a crucial decision. What she chose to do with this information would define not only her future, but the future of Imperial Jewels and the vision of a more ethical and humane business she had fought so hard for. With her heart racing and her mind buzzing, Emily prepared for the most important day of her career, knowing that the decisions she would make in the next 24 hours could change everything. Morning arrived with a mixture of anticipation and tension at Imperial Jewels. Emily, with dark circles under her eyes that betrayed a sleepless night, arrived early, the mysterious envelope safely tucked away in her briefcase. As employees began to arrive, Emily observed them with a new perspective. Each of them had been part of this transformation, and what she was about to do would affect them all. Jason and Nathan arrived punctually at 10 a.m. Emily greeted them with a smile that hid her internal turmoil. "Gentlemen, welcome. Before we start our meeting, I'd like us to take a tour of the store." As they walked, Emily showed them the implemented changes, from the new layout of the display cases to the corner dedicated to artisanal and sustainable jewelry. Employees greeted them with genuine enthusiasm, and customers browsed the store with a comfort that didn't exist before. "Impressive," Jason commented. "It feels different here." Nathan nodded. "More welcoming, without losing the essence of luxury." Finally, they reached the meeting room. Emily took a deep breath before beginning. "Gentlemen, in these 6 months we've achieved a lot. Our sales have increased by 30%, customer satisfaction is at an all-time high, and we've attracted a new generation of buyers without alienating our traditional base." Jason and Nathan smiled, clearly pleased. "However," Emily continued, her voice trembling slightly, "last night I discovered something I can't ignore." She took the envelope out of her briefcase and placed it on the table. "These documents reveal that some of the gems we've been using, including those in our new ethical line, come from mines that use questionable labor practices." The silence that followed was deafening. Jason and Nathan exchanged worried glances. "Emily," Nathan began cautiously, "I understand your concern, but you must understand that in our industry—" "No," Emily interrupted firmly. "If we're going to be truly ethical, we can't turn a blind eye to this. I propose that we launch a full investigation of our supply chain and that we be completely transparent with our customers about what we find. Do you realize what you're suggesting? Jason asked, his voice mixed with disbelief and a touch of admiration. It could shake the entire industry. I know, Emily responded, but if we truly believe in what we've been preaching these months, we have no other choice. This is our opportunity to lead real change in the industry. There was a long moment of silence. Finally, Nathan spoke. Emily, when we started this project, we were looking for someone who could change Imperial Jewel's image. But you're proposing to change the entire industry. Jason nodded slowly. Emily, thank you. I won't let you down. The following months were a whirlwind of activity. Imperial Jewels launched its Transparency Initiative, working with human rights organizations and sustainability experts to fully audit its supply chain. The news shook the industry. Some competitors harshly criticized the move, calling it naive and detrimental. Others, inspired by Imperial Jewel's courage, began their own investigations. There were difficult moments. Some revelations were painful, and there was a temporary drop in sales while necessary changes were implemented. But customer loyalty, both old and new, was strengthened by the company's honesty. A year after the launch of the initiative, Emily found herself at the podium again, this time at an international jewelry industry conference. True luxury, she told the audience, is not measured only in carats and clarity. It's measured in the integrity with which we operate, in the positive impact we have on the lives of those who touch our products, from the mine to the showcase. As she concluded her speech, Emily saw familiar faces in the audience. Alexander, now Imperial Jewels, Director of Social Responsibility. Rebecca, leading the international expansion of the ethical line. Chris G., now a respected inclusive customer service consultant. And in the front row, Jason and Nathan, smiling with pride. Emily ended with these words, "Change is never easy, but it's always possible." At Imperial Jewels, we don't just sell jewelry, we sell a promise, the promise that each piece has a story we can be proud of. Because in the end, the most valuable legacy we can leave is not of gold or diamonds, but of truth, integrity, and compassion. As the auditorium erupted in applause, Emily knew that this wasn't the end of her journey, but just the beginning. The shine of the change she had initiated in a small jewelry store in the heart of New York City now extended throughout the world, illuminating the path towards a more ethical and humane future in the luxury industry. As Emily stepped down from the podium, she was immediately surrounded by industry leaders, journalists, and fellow changemakers. The buzz of excitement in the air was palpable. Miss Baker, a reporter from a prominent fashion magazine, approached her. "Your speech was inspiring. Do you believe other luxury brands will follow Imperial Jewel's lead?" Emily smiled, her eyes gleaming with determination. "I certainly hope so. The luxury industry has a unique opportunity to set an example. Our customers don't just want beautiful products. They want to feel good about their purchases. I believe transparency and ethical practices are the future of luxury." As she navigated through the crowd, Emily caught sight of Alexander, Rebecca, and Chris. They had come a long way from those first tense days at Imperial Jewels. Alexander, now exuding a quiet confidence, was deep in conversation with a group of sustainability experts. Rebecca, her former antagonist, was excitedly explaining the intricacies of their ethical sourcing process to a captivated audience. And Chris, once the shy salesman, was now confidently leading a workshop on inclusive customer service. Emily felt a surge of pride. These weren't just her colleagues, they were partners in a revolution. As the conference wound down, Emily found a quiet moment with Jason and Nathan. "Well, gentlemen," she said, a hint of playfulness in her voice, "I hope I haven't disappointed you too much with all this industry shaking." Jason chuckled. "Disappointed? Emily, you've exceeded our wildest expectations. When we first met you, we thought we were just changing a jewelry store. Now, we're changing the world." Nathan nodded in agreement. "The road hasn't been easy, and we know there are still challenges ahead, but we're committed to this path. In fact, we have a proposition for you." Emily raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Oh, What kind of proposition? We want to take Imperial Jewels global, Jason explained. Not just as a jewelry brand, but as a movement. We're talking flagship stores in Paris, Tokyo, Dubai, all built on the principles you've established. Emily's mind raced with the possibilities. That's incredible. But it's also a massive undertaking. Are you sure we're ready? Nathan smiled. With you leading the way, absolutely. But there's more. We want to establish the Imperial Jewels Foundation, dedicated to improving working conditions in mines, supporting artisanal communities, and promoting sustainable practices across the industry. Emily felt a lump in her throat. This was beyond anything she had imagined when she first stepped into Imperial Jewels as a receptionist. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Jason urged. The world needs more leaders like you, Emily. Leaders who aren't afraid to challenge the status quo, who see business as a force for good. Emily took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. Yes, she said finally, her voice firm with conviction. Yes, let's do this. As they shook hands, sealing their new venture, Emily couldn't help but think back to that first day at Imperial Jewels. She had walked in hoping to make a small difference, and now she stood at the precipice of a global transformation. The next few years were a whirlwind of activity. Imperial Jewels opened stores in major cities around the world, each one a beacon of ethical luxury. The Imperial Jewels Foundation partnered with NGOs, governments, and other corporations to drive sustainable practices across the industry. Emily found herself traveling the world, from glittering galas in Paris to remote mining communities in Africa. She spoke at the United Nations, advocating for stricter regulations on gem sourcing. She mentored young entrepreneurs who shared her vision of ethical business. But amidst all the growth and change, Emily never forgot the core values that had started it all. Each new store maintained the warm, inclusive atmosphere she had first cultivated in New York. Every employee, from the CEO to the newest sales associate, underwent rigorous ethics training. 5 years after the conference, Emily stood in front of the original Imperial Jewels store in New York. It had been renovated, but still maintained its classic charm. As she pushed open the door, the familiar tinkle of the bell brought a smile to her face. Inside, she saw a young woman at the reception desk, greeting customers with a warm smile. For a moment, Emily saw herself in that young woman, full of hope, eager to make a difference. As she walked through the store, she overheard a conversation that made her pause. "Excuse me," an elderly gentleman was saying to a salesperson. "I'm looking for a gift for my granddaughter's graduation. Something special, but I'm on a bit of a budget." "Of course, sir," the salesperson replied warmly. "Let me show you our New Beginnings collection. Each piece is ethically sourced and tells a unique story. I'm sure we can find something perfect for your granddaughter." Emily felt a wave of emotion wash over her. This was why she had fought so hard, why she had pushed for change. It wasn't just about the jewelry, it was about creating a space where everyone felt valued, where every purchase told a story of positive change. As she left the store, Emily's phone buzzed with a message. It was from Jason. "Turn on the news, you're going to want to see this." Curious, Emily ducked into a nearby cafe and asked the barista to switch to the news channel. Her jaw dropped as she saw the headline, "Major Luxury Conglomerate Announces Industry-Wide Ethical Sourcing Initiative, Cites Imperial Jewels as Inspiration." As the newscaster detailed how one of the largest luxury groups in the world was committing to full supply chain transparency and ethical sourcing across all its brands, Emily felt tears welling up in her eyes. It had been a long, challenging journey from that first day as a receptionist. There had been moments of doubt, of fear, of near defeat. But as she watched the news, seeing the ripple effect of the changes she had set in motion, Emily knew that every struggle had been worth it. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from Chris. "We did it, Emily. We really did it." Emily smiled, her heart full. Yes, they had done it. But she knew this wasn't the end. It was a new beginning, not just for Imperial Jewels, but for the entire industry. As she stepped back out onto the bustling New York street, Emily felt a renewed sense of purpose. There was still work to be done, new challenges to face, new horizons to explore. But now she wasn't alone. She had sparked a movement, inspired an industry, and proven that luxury could be both beautiful and ethical. The future gleamed bright before her, like a perfectly cut diamond, multifaceted, brilliant, and full of possibility.